Hey everybody, it's Kevin Duffy of the Boston Herald, joined by Patriots beat columnist Karen Gregan at the Herald newsroom, a week off from Gillette for us as the Patriots are on a bye. Back in the summer, when I first started at the Herald, Karen and I wrote our lists of the 10 most indispensable Patriots, and on the bye week, we decided to revisit that list and re-rank it, mostly because Karen wanted to just make fun of how pathetic my initial list was. So we're going to talk about our new list here in week 11. A lot of changes. Karen has a new number one. I kept my number one. Why don't we start with who you have at the top of the list? Running back James White. I should mention, I didn't have him ranked before the season. Karen thinks that was maybe the most massive blunder
of all time, Kevin.
So I want you to explain why you think White is number one. I do have him ranked now, but I have him at 5, not 1.
Well, Kevin, first of all, to not have him at all on the list the first time was ridiculous. I think I pointed that out at the time, but now that you've slowly come to your senses, but what number do you have him at?
5, which is reasonable. 1 is just...
reasonable, but still ridiculous. He's the MVP of the team, most valuable. You even agreed to that.
I did agree to that because Julian Edelman didn't play 4 games to start the year.
Well,
I think Edelman, if your argument for White is that he's the guy that Brady is going to rely on, he was in September and October, certainly, but now that Edelman's back, I think Edelman is clearly his go-to target.
Jimmy James is still the guy Brady looks to. I don't see Brady throwing balls dinging him off the helmet like he did with
that was one play.
Julian Edelman.
Come on.
So I'm just telling you, initially I had Edelman at 10 on my first list because, first of all, he wasn't playing the first 4 games, and it was hard to dissect at that point just how he was going to be able to come back from an ACL injury. So I thought starting him at the bottom would be a good place.
I have a lot of offensive skill players on my list, and that's because the depth behind every one of those players is not good. There's really no backup for Edelman, who I have higher. There's no backup for Josh Gordon. Sony Michel, they've been using a wide receiver as a backup. I know Rex Burkhead is due to come back in week 13, so that could change, but I think the reason I put Michel on is you look at their running game and how important that is to the offense. They need to give Tom Brady some balance.
I wrestled with Patrick Chung or Devin McCourty. I don't think any of the safeties have really had the best of seasons. They've kind of been up and down. I think the difference between Chung and McCourty is I think Duron Harmon can basically play McCourty's position. So they don't have, Chung is it. Again, what's the defense done this year? So I just think Gronk and the offense, I think the offense rates over the defense. I had Gronkowski number 1 on my list last time, and I seriously considered having him there again, even though he hasn't had his best season. But his importance to the offense, whether he's 100% or 80%, I still think is off the charts.
I'm on the same page with you. I have 6 offensive players, 3 defensive players, and Stephen Gostkowski on my list, so I also prioritize offense over defense. But I think when push comes to shove in a big moment, Edelman's still the guy for Tom Brady. He's had 100 yards in 2 of the past 3 games. He really doesn't look like he's regressed too much coming off that ACL. So he's, to me, I had him number 1 before the season. I don't see any reason to change that right now.
Well, I might not argue with Edelman, but again, if we're talking that offense is the most important thing, and you have 2 defensive players at 2 and 3.
But then I have offense 4 through 7. I have 6 offensive players.
True, but you're ranking them in the wrong order, if you ask me. That's all.
All right, this has gotten way too heated. We're going to call it there. You can find all our Patriots coverage on the bye week at bostonherald.com.